we'll, have our talk and see what happens. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:03. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. I always try and put visitors on the agenda, and I don't see any tonight. If someone shows up, maybe we'll come back and revisit this if they want to say anything. We missed March, so we have the February 3rd minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Very good. Okay, any comments or suggestions or amendments?
Double checking.
Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Let's vote then. All in favor of approving the February 3rd minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. It's unanimous, 4-0. Thank you. All right, so I think there was a meeting somewhere along the way, maybe January, I'm not sure, where there were 4 of us. So we've got a quorum, we can meet. And I'm happy to do that if you guys want to. I don't think we should make any, huge decisions tonight since we're missing. We can make all the decisions we want because we got a quorum, but I don't recommend that we do since we're missing a couple of our members. But having said that, I propose we sort of continue this general discussion where we left off. And I apologize for March. It was, I couldn't make a regularly scheduled meeting. I don't know if anyone else couldn't make it either, but I couldn't. And then I tried to do some other meetings and none of it worked. So here we are, the 4 of us. So I apologize for that. But unless someone has a different idea, I would propose we sort of continue this general discussion that we had started at least in our February meeting. Is that okay with everyone?
Sure.
Okay. And thank you, Gail. Please put this in the record and the minutes, Gail. Thank you very much for sending a revised, updated working copy of our code of ethics for all of us to work off of. Thank you very much. Do you want to say anything about that, Gail, as we get going?
Well, I just want to say, Robert, you sent me a private email saying that part in green on the top was actually an act that did not become a law. So we don't have to worry about that, being late in drafting this code of ethics, since it's more of a strong recommendation, not an actual law to have it. But what I mostly changed this time was having all the procedures for somebody filing a complaint, because we discussed last time that we did want to have all of that in there. And so I went off of the towns of Madison and Marlborough and how they did it. And then also I work on Google Docs, so a little bit of the formatting was messed up when I copied it into Word, but basically I made like a nice looking form for how they would submit their complaint and bring it to the town hall and have it notarized. And I guess it's under the Connecticut law for like the state ethics and like the time frame, like the responding to things in 3 days versus 5 days. So I was just kind of going off of that, but we can obviously change it. It's just kind of a jumping off point for us, basically.
Yes, and again, thank you very much. I guess my initial reaction is I think the narrative sections in your working copy about procedures and sort of how this is gonna go, I think I do see codes with that, so that's, that's good. We can decide if we wanna do that or not. I kind of, personally, I kind of feel like the forms, which are fantastic, should probably be left to the next committee, but I don't know how other people feel about that. Because these, and I didn't really go over them that closely to see what I think about the forms. That's just, I'm sure they're great forms. It's just a concept of that would be for the next group to do. But that's just my thought.
I don't think there's an issue of having it here so that it is, again, a jumping off point. This is not something that is written in stone. It's something that we can, continue to work off of, and the next level will be able to have as an opportunity to redefine if they see fit. But I have to say that this was excellent, because I thought it's very well done, Gail, and even the fact that you're telling us that you've copied and pasted, you really put it together beautifully. So I really want to thank you, because I took a look at it from the past 2 hours to study it, and I've looked at it in coordination with our charter. It really fills in the blanks of our charter. So I thought it was a really fine document that you put together.
I like the idea of the forms being in there as a template. And maybe we can just put something on the top of on the top of each one that says, this is not intended to be the final form. The final form is the decision of the Ethics Commission, or whatever we end up calling it. This is just a jumping off point. But I think, if I were starting on the commission, I would appreciate having an idea, and also appreciate having the liberty to change it.
It doesn't show up in Word, but when I originally made the forms, there's actually a footer that says approved by the Ethics Commission, and the date is left blank. So if we wanted to just put them in as a template, and then they can either approve that form or make their own new form,
Yeah.
that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's all of the elements that are needed.
Or
Yeah,
Rob, do you see an issue with having the forms in if they're just templates, or?
Well, I think we
Yes.
can say that, like that a final form will be approved by the Ethics Commission, but these templates are an example, and they may be changed. I don't know. I mean, Ellen is saying it's not set in stone, but this is going to go up on the website as the code of ethics. So I don't know if we should include forms or not.
Yeah, that's my thought, that I think the forms are great, and maybe you hand them off to the Board of Selectmen or the next committee or whatever. But yeah, just what you said there, that if we make that, pages whatever through whatever of our, enacted code of ethics, then they're sort of there.
Yeah.
And it makes it a little harder. So for instance, if we, it would be, in my humble opinion, it would be the same as changing some other portion of our code of ethics. You can do that, you can amend it, you can do all sorts of things, but you can't just say, I don't like the enacted code of ethics, and I'm going to change it a little bit. You know what I mean? And so I think the concept is great, and it's going to be very helpful, but I think maybe we just kind of hand it over to them, rather than make it a part of the enacted code. But that's not really getting at the concept of what you've done here. That's just how do we finish it
Yeah.
off?
I agree with that. Now that we've had this discussion, I think that does make the most sense. And I do remember coming across some towns where they had what were clearly templates that were, you know,
Petra. Oh wow,
20,
much better.
you know,
Thanks.
20
He's awesome.
or 25 years old that were clearly not meant to, you know, be in perpetuity. And it looks just a little weird. So, yeah, I'm happy, you know, I'm happy with that. Now, Rob, is that something that, I don't know if that would be considered a big decision, but is that something that we can, you know, settle on tonight and go forward? So, or not?
Well, I think, I think it's kind of our mood at the moment that that's kind of what we think, that these are great forms and they should be used, or something very close to them should be used, but maybe we shouldn't make it an official part. But I don't think we're really ready to start voting and enacting anything yet. Just because I think we want to finish this discussion and then, you know, come back to start voting on however we approach it. You know, going section by section or maybe, you know, just having a final document that we all vote on. But yeah, I don't, first of all, I don't think we're really ready to vote on it. And second of all, you know, we can do it without our two members, but I don't think we should, with our two missing members.
Could we just put, for the purposes of this being a working document, could we simply put, sample form? Just a simple a header that says
I
sample
think that
form.
sounds good, yeah. And just make it like a note to any worker who wants to submit a complaint that they would have to find the current form at the town hall or from the Ethics Commission website, maybe something like that.
The other thing that could be done is, I think in Word, there is there's an overlay that says draft copy.
Oh, okay,
And we could just, on the entire document right now, because it is really a draft,
yeah,
we could use that overlay.
okay,
And once there is a vote and everyone is finalized on what we have, we could just then look at that form and say, sample example.
I'm sorry, I missed part of that. Is that you're suggesting we include the forms in some manner in the finished code? Is that what you were saying?
I'm saying that at this point, we're still in draft.
Yeah,
So I would, even if we do finalize this as our offering to a commission, the commission can then look at it and say, well, this is a draft of what the committee has done, and it's offering it to us for review, and we will finalize it.
the forms, you mean?
Yeah,
I get, my only comment on that is I would say we would just sort of hand it off to them rather than include it in the code. But that's what committees do. Maybe the vote goes however it goes, but I kind of feel like, and then we can move on. We'll talk about this all you want. It just seems to me that we're establishing a code with some definitions and how some things are going to go. And then the forms are important, but they're kind of like, you know, the practical method of how a case is going to get going. You know, like we're not really, in my view, that's for the next group to
exactly.
do. And I think they'd be very happy with what Gail's done and how we're gonna, you know, keep working on this, on the forms, but I just don't think we should make it part of the code, but we'll see how that goes.
Rob, who do we present this to once we have finalized it?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I think that came up last time. And I'm not sure if I was supposed to get an answer to that or not, but I have no further direction than I did last time, which is my view is when we've when we think we've mostly completed our work, but before we go to a vote, I think I would like to share it with the Board of Selectmen and also kind of let the town know that we're about to do something here. So you're invited to all the meetings, but here's one that you could come to, and here's what we're getting ready to really vote on, and what are your thoughts, what are your comments? And it doesn't have to be one meeting, but at least one meeting. And then I think that when we conclude that and we vote and assume for the sake of discussion, we, one way or the other, have approved a code of ethics, then we would send it to the selectmen and ultimately to a town vote, like a real town meeting vote.
But you'd like to have an open meeting before that?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yes. And again, all of our meetings are open, but you know, there are a lot of boards and committees, and so we had a couple of
Like an
visitors.
input.
Yeah,
Sorry, an
exactly,
input meeting, yeah.
exactly. Or people can complain or applaud us or give us things we didn't think about or whatever. Because they can do that anyway. Ultimately, the town's people can do that at the town meeting. And that's okay, but if there's some ideas that we just didn't think about, or some thoughts that we thought were good ideas and everyone else has a different idea and we're persuaded, it'd be better to have that idea earlier, you know, rather than at the moment of the town meeting. That would be okay too, but it'd be better to have it earlier. I think. You know, going through Gail's working copy, I'll hedge a little bit, but I think I want to say that I think the various sections that are populated are very good and probably very close to final form to what we might want to do on those sections. Now, there might be a section that I, for instance, might say, well, I don't think that section should be in there at all. But the wording of it, if it stays in, is probably pretty close. So again, for the fourth time, thank you, Gail.
I just had one addition under definitions. It speaks to the town officer, officials, employees, agents, consultants, members, and it lists all of the different possible affiliations. But we work on committees often, and there's nothing that says committee. It says commission. And I'm wondering if we can add committee, such as us.
Rob explained last time that we are the ethics committee and there will be an ethics commission. So I did find and replace all. That should have been committee, but I just went through the whole document and replaced everything that said committee with commission. So you're right. We'll have to change
Okay,
that
and
back.
there's actually a double here of commission and commission.
Okay.
If you go one, two, the
yeah.
third and fourth line down. So if we
All
can make
right.
one of those committee, that would be
Working
my
copy.
suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I don't mean to skip ahead. So if somebody wants to talk about a section, I don't mean to skip it, but I'm going to go to section 7 on disclosure of financial interest. And I don't think I liked that in the beginning. And maybe it always said this, and I just didn't really get my mind around what was really being said here. But I don't think that we should require every town employee, official, committee member, board member, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to fill out a financial disclosure form every year. But that's not really what this says anyway. It just says you're supposed to submit one if you have a financial interest
Right.
worth whatever. And maybe it always said that. I'm just sort of getting it more now. And we could debate whether $200 is the right amount or not. But I think I would be personally more in favor of something like this. And again, I apologize. Maybe it was this all along and I just missed it, but something like this where it would by definition, it might not hit anybody, you know, or it might, you know, bring to our attention sort of a self-report. So I like that thought.
So are you saying that you want to change this to a self-reporting?
I think that's what it says now,
Yeah,
right?
and, is this something that's done annually or, upon hire or upon project?
Well, the wording of this, and we can talk about this as we go forward. The wording of this says it must be filed.
During said year?
Well, it also says promptly, as promptly as possible after you become aware of such interest that you may have. So
Yeah,
the
I
thing
was
that I,
thinking of doing another form for them, like you could just complete this form and send it in. But I mean, it's like one of those things where you just have to kind of trust that they're gonna do it. You know, and maybe we
Yeah.
don't need to make it that official. Or like you said, maybe we could increase the limit.
yeah, you reserve the right to say that, you know, it could just be redundant with the other sections on gifts and favors and conflict of interest and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Or we could define it a little, give it more clarity by saying upon hire or prior to initiation of project or program. Disclosure.
Yeah, but if I understand, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but that was my concern the first time around, like not many people would ever fill out this, perhaps no one would ever fill it out. It's not something, right? I'm reading that right, Gail, right? That this is not something that everyone in town is gonna have to fill out once a year. We don't want to do that.
No, I think this is more for like if you're actually going to benefit, like say the town is hiring your brother-in-law's landscaping company or something, right? But then wouldn't you have to recuse yourself from voting on something like that anyway?
You
I'm
would,
I'm really at a loss of like how this would even come into play.
well, I guess just sitting here would come into play in one of two different ways. One, someone would do a self-report for whatever reason. Okay, great. And the second way is they wouldn't do a self-report because they didn't want anyone to know about the gift or the favor or the conflict of interest. And which is probably the way it would go if someone's, I mean, I shouldn't say that. It is a way it could go if someone is receiving a gift or a favor or is engaging in some sort of conflict of interest. They're not going to do the self-reporting, you know, disclosure of financial interests. So, like I said, in that way, it's a little redundant to just saying you can't do such a thing. But I guess I don't know if I have a hypothetical right now, but that works. But if you had a situation where you've got maybe the one you just said, where someone's in-law is going to do landscaping, and that's determined, you know, to not be a conflict of interest with whatever volunteer board someone's on, but nevertheless, you would file the disclosure so everyone knows. I guess maybe that's on the up and up, so to speak.
That's the way I view it as well. It's just to like let everyone know that I do have an interest in this, so I'm gonna recuse myself from any votes on it. You know, just like you said, to be on the up and up.
Eric's here.
Oh, no, that's not there. Someone else.
Okay.
Okay,
But where does this talk about recusing yourself from like a vote, or am I missing it? I see the part about disclosing the financial.
I don't know
arrangement,
that
but-
it's written in there, but I mean, I
Oh,
think that
okay.
was just when we said, you know, like conflict of interest, you know, if you're voting on something that's going to benefit you financially, you really shouldn't be participating in that vote. I don't know if it's written in there though. I think we just discussed that once.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we have a specific intention, then we probably, maybe not tonight, but at some point we should clarify that, because my brother-in-law's landscaping company is not really going to necessarily going to benefit me financially, right? But
Well,
it still could be a
family,
conflict
yeah,
of interest,
right.
right? It still could be a
Yeah.
conflict of interest. So I think at some point we need to maybe clarify what we're trying to address and make sure
Mm.
that the wording addresses it.
I think what I'll do before next time is look at some other towns and see if they do this a little bit more clearly.
yeah, and so the other thing that's out there, in a couple of areas, and I'm not trying to say something to take us off topic here, but I'm gonna use another example here, that we have this harassment and discrimination section, which we surely, don't want anyone doing that.
Mhm.
But it's my point of view that may sort of already be covered. Now, set that aside for a minute. When we're talking about people recusing themselves from votes on town boards and town agencies and things like that, which is a very, important thing. At least with some of the boards and commissions, there's some existing law out there on what a conflict of interest is and maybe what it isn't. So I think when we do this, I think we would want to number one, be cognizant of that, and number two, not mess it up, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
And that can be done. I mean, we could put some of our own language together, then add a phrase about having it be consistent with existing state law, or, whatever. I don't know if that makes sense to everyone, but, especially on zoning boards, zoning boards, for instance, I know there's developed law on what's a conflict of interest and what isn't, and continuing to develop. So, we wouldn't really want to step on that.
Mm.
Yeah.
But
In the conflict of interest, right above it, it does speak to one should avoid even the appearance of impropriety as it relates to this section.
Mhm.
And it does speak about immediate family members within section 5.
Yeah.
So perhaps clarifying that with an addition of one would have to recuse themselves upon any vote.
Mhm.
It might be appropriate in section 5.
Okay. Now, I know, Rob, you mentioned in the past the the section on sexual harassment, because a lot of those complaints could be, filed criminally. But I'm just thinking about an example. I had a friend who for many years worked at the Branford transfer station, and she was female, and she worked with a bunch of men, and they never got along. They were always complaining when she wanted help moving some, large television or something. They didn't like having a woman there. And the harassment got to a level that she would file these complaints on paper, like a paper form, and they would get lost. And this happened like 4 times, that the paperwork was getting lost. And then, she got a lawyer and nothing happened. Eventually she just moved away because she couldn't take it anymore. So I'm thinking, like, for that kind of section, when it's maybe not something that's quite criminal, but it's making your workplace very uncomfortable, they would be able to file a complaint with the ethics commission and then come to some kind of settlement through the commission. I'm just thinking that's like kind of a nice thing where it's not quite criminal yet, but it's an uncomfortable workplace environment.
Okay, so I'm with you 100%. So my comment is, I think that system already exists. And I'm not sure about, your friend's experience and how that went down, but,
Yeah.
and it's referenced in here in the section on, the conduct we're trying to define here. It says may violate Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and the Connecticut Discriminatory Employment Practices Act. Well, it assuredly would,
Right.
and the conduct that you just described, whether the person won or lost the case, that is exactly why we have a Connecticut Office of Human Rights and Opportunities, CHRO, and they
Okay.
investigate these, and they can award damages or refer your case to the regular superior court or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
And I feel like that system exists, number one, and they're in I'm sure our folks could hear a complaint and decide what to do about it, but they're in a better position to hear a complaint and decide what to do about it. And they have statutory authority to render all sorts of awards for damages and workplace conditions and all sorts of things that we probably couldn't confer upon ourselves. So I'm 100% in favor of, doing everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen. I just would, it's like my comment before about not wanting to step on something that already exists,
Right.
But you do have a statement here, parenthetically too, where it says town officers have the right to work in environments free from. And it goes on, speaking of the different concerns that one might encounter. But we could change town officers to town employees and volunteers.
Well, we kind of in section 2 define what we mean by town officer. It's kind of an all-encompassing term. I know it's officer sounds weird, but
Would it include
everybody.
volunteers?
I'm not going to get up and look now, but there are bulletin boards around with all sorts of notices and things. I'm confident that somewhere in town hall there's a poster on what to do right now if
For sure.
if you're suffering this sort of treatment. And I don't. Well, I've already made my statement about what I think should be done, and I don't, don't get me wrong, I don't tolerate, this sort of conduct at all. I just think someone else is in charge of it already.
Okay.
But that's,
speaks to that Connecticut General Statutes, section 1-82A.
I don't see that one.
Further down, complaints.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a different. That's a different, reference there. That is, you know, I think one of our prior meetings I saw, one of the towns not too far away had recently had a hearing. They have an ethics commission set up and they'd had a hearing and they'd made a finding of some sort against the person who was accused of doing whatever. And I thought, oh, this will be great. We're gonna have that, I'll call the chairman of the board to come talk to us and tell us everything that worked and didn't work. But what you're looking at right there is, a statement about it being confidential, at least some of the time, if not all the time, in, you know, any sort of hearing. And so that's why that person's not come to speak to us, because they're not gonna come speak to us.
Yeah.
At least about that particular hearing, which would be very useful for us to hear, you know, about the things that worked and the things that didn't work, but it's not possible. So anyway, what you've just looked at is for any sort of hearing that would be held, not solely limited to, let's say, you know, let's say we leave in section 12 on harassment and discrimination. Well, the thing that we just are discussing now about confidentiality, that would apply not only to those sorts of hearings, but any other kind of hearing.
Would Title VII of the Civil Rights Act cover that?
It would cover the harassment and discrimination. And that's my argument, whether people go along with it or not, that there's a robust, vibrant state agency already in place that hears these complaints already.
So I think it's covered.
I think it's covered. But just because I think it doesn't make, I mean, I'm sorry. That's not really an opinion, that's more what's going on, but I don't want to give the impression that I'm telling everybody what to do. That's just my thought on this point. And I think it's kind of redundant and could even be harmful is the wrong word, but I'm going to say harmful in a way because there are very short deadlines to file a complaint with the Connecticut Human Rights and Opportunities Commission, and they would not, I don't think they would be impressed with someone going through a town system to say, well, therefore you could file your complaint later. So it also has the capacity to confuse the situation as well in terms of the person who's been harmed, which we wouldn't want to do. I mean, because you know, that's all of this is serious, but that's all very serious stuff. And you know, the CHRO and the courts are full of these cases, and that's a terrible thing, but it's just an illustration that's already sort of going on.
Well, much of our complaints and procedures in this document are confined initially to the Ethics Commission. And if that holds and these complaints are worked through the town, then in fact, it's going to mitigate timelines for state complaints.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
Well, explain it to me, because this is now getting above my pay grade.
Well, so I want to say you have 180 days to bring a complaint to the Connecticut Human Rights and Opportunities Commission if you've been discriminated against on any sort of, and it's not just, well, let me go back. This probably covers everything, this paragraph here.
Okay.
And when I say everything, hold on, let me get to it again. I flipped over. Okay,
Okay,
all right, so this, okay.
I get it.
Yeah, so, I mean, this covers not only sexual harassment, but then in section 2, it covers other sorts of harassment and discriminatory conduct based upon someone's race, culture, language, gender identity, sexual orientation, religious, political affiliation, or disability. So, and CHRO covers all that too. And if I got your question right, if someone if we enacted this and someone goes through our procedure and a finding's made or it's not made or whatever, and they're happy or unhappy with it, and then they want to go to CHRO, but it's more than 180 days, I think CHRO is going to say, sorry, too late. We don't care about the town of Killingworth.
Yeah.
So,
And that could be a prohibitive situation for someone going through this process. So somewhere, I'm wondering if somewhere that should be identified, that going through this process within the confines of the town, could be prohibitive based on the state timeline.
all right, so I think if it's the mood of the board that we're going to include this, that you might want to put something like that in there. You know, I'm not sure exactly what the wording would be, but some language that there's another system out there. And, you know, I don't know, taking part in the town of Killingworth Ethics Commission procedures.
Might mitigate timeline for state statutes.
Would not mitigate timelines.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, or something about it, you know, it needs to be pursued simultaneously or something. I agree. If we're going to keep it in here, we have to be clear that, you know, that this isn't the procedure, the only procedure you can avail yourself of.
That there is recourse beyond the town
Mhm.
and statute timelines should be, to be aware of statutes and timelines.
And ideally, you know, maybe that becomes a requirement of the ethics commission, but since it's not here yet, it can't, you know, that they inform people or something, but, you know, since the commission isn't here yet and hasn't made those decisions, sort of guessing.
Okay, so the complainant should be, if we were gonna play with wording, and this is, please understand, this is just play, the complainant will be informed of state statutes and timelines.
I don't like that either, because what's going to happen with that is, what if the wrong information is given? Because and I would say that this corner of the law was originally set up to not be so complicated in terms of making a complaint and getting redress and all that. But like a lot of things in life, it's become quite complex. And the attorneys who do it more and more sort of do nothing else but this. And if we begin putting things in there about what your other legal rights are and they're slightly mistaken, then welcome to the case, sort of.
I understand.
I mean, yeah, so anyway, yeah.
I think
I'll just
I
stop
think
there.
we have to play with this a little bit though, because Only because we don't want to step on somebody's, legal rights beyond, the confines of Killingworth.
I think it might be useful to put in something like a little caveat that says, you know, taking part in the Killingworth ethics procedures does not preclude you from pursuing other legal courses of action at the same time, and that it is your responsibility to make sure that you're fulfilling the requirements for filing in a timely manner. So basically, like, we don't want them to say, well, I put in a complaint with the ethics committee, and by the time the decision was made, now I want to file, but it's too late. We kind of
That's
want
my
to say,
concern.
well, you can follow all courses at the same time without waiting for us. And that way, but you know, like, I think, like, I agree with Rob that we don't want to be requiring the commission to give them information about all other courses of action, because, you know, I don't think any of us know enough to make sure we're doing the right thing, you know.
Yeah, I think we all have the best of intentions on this one. We just don't want to. We just don't want to mess it up. And I only have 3 other codes with me right now. I'm just kind of flipping through them. And I don't, you know, it looks like it's mostly conflict of interest and financial stuff and the outside employment. I mean, that doesn't mean that this isn't a worthwhile thing to put in. I get the conversation. And even in the ones I'm flipping through quickly, I could be missing something, but anyway, I've had my say. I've said what I want to say. Do we want to carry this conversation on? Do people want to say anything more about this? I mean, I don't mean that we're finished with it forever, because we're not. I think we've talked about this already, and it's sort of been the same sort of conversation. And there's certainly, you know, a desire to have a section very much like the section that's in this working copy in here. And then there's at least an idea from me that it maybe shouldn't be in there. So that's just something we're gonna have to figure out as we make our decisions.
So you're saying harassment and discrimination, that entire section should not be in there?
That's where I'm kind of coming down right now. And don't get me wrong, I don't mean to say that that's all okay or that the town's not against it. It's just that there's already a mechanism in existence for it.
Is there a, is that mechanism or existence on the town site somewhere? That you know of, only because I looked and I couldn't, because I was where you were, and then I looked for it, because I was like, oh, it's gotta be in some like town charter or a code of ethics, like, not a code of ethics, like a general code, and I didn't see it.
No, it wouldn't be there. What you would see, and I guess I could get up and look somewhere in town hall here somewhere. There's a poster somewhere that says,
Middle of.
here are your, well, it could be anywhere. So, you know, here are your rights if you have suffered any of the things that we're talking about in this section, and maybe some other things. So it wouldn't appear in the town charter. It wouldn't appear in, you know, any sort of thing the town had passed. It's, I don't know what to describe it to. It's kind of like, I don't know. except that it's just, it's a state office that enforces these laws and rules.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I mean, I'm aware of that. I guess I'm just using like a, you know, a prudent layperson, reasonable approach. If I had an issue and I saw that there was an ethics charter, I might look there. I wouldn't know, gee, you have to walk, I need to go into the town hall and look for the poster. So maybe, I mean, maybe we need to find some place in the middle that said, maybe, maybe the charter ends up, or whatever we end up calling this, ends up pointing to, go down to the town hall and look at the poster. But that doesn't feel like it's the right answer either. So maybe we just need to figure out, how we cover that. Because I don't feel like there are posters up in town hall is enough if that's the only thing we're relying on for someone to get their due process.
well, and I don't want to put too much importance on the town poster. The poster in the town hall, it's not so much that as it is that,
It may direct you.
yeah, that's not the source of law, so to speak. I mean, there's this robust system that already exists, that's been addressing situations like this for decades already in Connecticut. And it's possible that, someone could fall victim to some of this conduct and not know about that. And I guess that sounds like one of our concerns here, but, I don't know. I mean, I've already stated my hesitation, just that I wouldn't wanna make life more difficult for the victim here or mess up the victim's rights to get relief. Because let's face it,
Mhm.
if a victim has suffered some of this harassment or discrimination, if we've set this up that you're gonna go to the Killingworth Ethics Commission, then, and there's a hearing, then whoever did it's gonna get a reprimand or whatever. If they go to CHRO, they're going to get, they're going to get redress for what's happened to them. Legal,
Right.
legal, whatever they would get.
Is it appropriate for this, whatever this final document ends up being, to simply address it in that way, to just basically say, if this is your all concerns regarding X, should be referred to CHRO or the victim, I don't know if you'd call the person a plaintiff, but whatever the accuser, the concerned party should be directed there, so that we're not 100% silent and assuming they'll figure it out on their own, but we're also not establishing something that isn't ours to establish, isn't ours to manage, uphold, etc.
Yeah,
I
so,
just think we need to have something that, for the little, like, say for example, you're Republican and all the Democrats at work are constantly making fun of you and it's uncomfortable. That's not something where you'd go find legal actions, but if your supervisor isn't responding to you, maybe you want to go to like report it to the ethics commission and say, this has gotten to the point where I'm really uncomfortable at work. That's not something where you'd want to go take legal action and get like something involved. I feel like we should kind of have that section in, like, certain actions may be warranted, like a complaint to the ethics commission, although if you feel that legal action should be taken. While you may report it to the Ethics Commission, you should also seek legal advice or, legal recourse. So like that depends on how bad the harassment or discrimination is.
Or
I just think
perhaps,
like we should have something in there saying that, because ethically we don't tolerate it. I think there should be something in there that says that. But then obviously, like you say, there are other methods for them that are probably more appropriate if it was a serious form of harassment.
Well, so the section that we're looking at right now would not, by its terms, cover the example you just gave, because this
Right.
is,
Well,
yeah,
we
this is,
can modify it for sure.
but I also, I'll hedge and say I want to think about all this stuff, but I don't know if, I mean, the example you gave is, a member of one political party is being ribbed by his coworkers who are members of another political party.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get in line to have your hearing, I think. I mean, we'll never even get them scheduled, right, these days.
Yeah.
And I don't mean it to make light of it or anything, but and there may be other examples that, I don't know, that somehow we do something.
I think we need to ponder this and play with the language in this section. Because I think what you're speaking of, it has merit in workplace harmony. We want to be able to say to the ethics committee, we have an issue here under difficult circumstances. The ethics committee may very well say, we can mediate that with you. However, there is a process that goes beyond this, and we would, if we cannot mediate, we can advise you to refer to other recourse, and not give recourse, but just advise that you have other recourse.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion that maybe not this month, but at some point that we come to one of these meetings with sections rewritten? Because I feel like we keep saying what we want to change, but we're not really making a lot of progress. I feel like a lot of these issues are coming up repeatedly, but
Well, I hear you. Now, part of it is, we've got a quorum, but we've only got 4 of our 6 tonight. And so if we were to decide, okay, we've talked about section 12 enough, let's put pen to paper. Well, if I'm putting pen to paper, actually, I'm going to take an eraser to paper. So, and I don't mean to make a lot of it. The point is that we're having a discussion and we have differences of opinion now that we're trying to work through. And maybe we never will work through them. And maybe there'll be a vote someday that's 5-1 or 4-2 or 3-3 or whatever on this. And that's just how it goes. But I hear you. But I don't, and we're working towards that, but I don't think we're really,
Okay.
But I'll take an optimistic point of view. I think that, we're maybe identifying some, some sections where we need to have some more conversations, or we've had all the conversations we're going to have, and we're just not going to come to a unanimous decision, which again is totally fine. And then some of it, not accepting gifts, conflict of interest, all that sort of stuff. I mean, we sort of skipped over that because that's just how it's got to be, I think.
Right.
Let me.
Is there, just jumping off that, sorry to just jump in here, but just jumping off that point, another way might be to just identify certain topics or things we want to discuss or decide on at a meeting, and so we come prepared to discuss and land there. And you know, as long as we have a quorum, because my I mean, I sort of feeling the same way Gail is, like, if we can't really do anything without all six of us, not that we can't do anything, but if we can't decide, if we're not going to decide or vote on anything without all six of us, that's fine. But then let's make sure that we use all of our meetings, but particularly meetings where there aren't all six of us, to advance, so that people who aren't here can look and say, okay, they talk, you know, this, they landed here, or they discussed this, and or whatever. Because I
Okay.
do feel similar to Gail, like we're kind of talking about the same things, but we're not. We're just kind of restating what we think, or you know,
Okay,
but
all
not
right.
getting to.
Very good. So let's do that, and then maybe we break up for tonight. So I'm gonna go through and see if this works, what I think, and then you guys tell me if I've got any of this right or wrong. I think sections 1 and 2, our establishment and purpose and our definitions, we might want to do some wordsmithing, we might not, but I think we're mostly in agreement that we want something like that or something pretty close to it. Okay? Now, personally, I'm not sure we need section 3 core values, because we already have section 1. Okay, so now I may be the only one that thinks that, but I'm gonna identify that, for example, as something that we should discuss. I think section 4, gifts and favors, section 5, conflict of interest. And I think I'll even throw in, well, let's stop at that. Section 4, gifts and favors, section 5, conflict of interest. Maybe we want to do some wordsmithing, but we all want that in there, right? I don't think we don't need a robust debate over whether to, you know, make that part of the code. Section 7, maybe we could talk about, you know, I guess in terms of, do we want it? And if we do, is the $200 figure the right answer? I think section 8, use of town assets, we all want that. Section 9, outside employment. I'm gonna say that that's probably non-controversial. Certainly the way it's written, we might wanna wordsmith it some. And we didn't really talk about sections 10 and 11, political activity and public conduct. I'm gonna say, and they're not really populated, but I'm gonna say those are hot button issues that are gonna need some discussion, whatever they are, because that's gonna come up against things like freedom of expression and freedom of speech and everything else, if we end up putting something like that in. Obviously, I'm gonna identify section 12 that we've been discussing about tonight on harassment and discrimination. And then the next one is section 13, which is the kind of the procedure. And obviously that's an important section, but I'm going to say that's going to be more in the context of wordsmithing than, do we want this, or is this a good idea? Now, the one, if I can put my finger on it here, the one section is, okay, if we go to section G, no, hold on. Yes, section G on page 5 of Gail's most recent working copy here, which is, okay, we've got a code, we've got a case, and some findings been made. Now what happens? And according to this, upon a finding of violation of any provision in the code, the commission will refer the matter to the first selectman. The Board of Selectmen will report any action. And the point of this is, and we've asked ourselves this question before, what's gonna happen? And there are some codes where sort of the buck stops with our successors in the next ethics board, who are gonna really decide these things. And then there are some that they make recommendations, so to speak, and then it's given to the town manager for those towns, or it's given to the board of selectmen for those towns. So I think I like the idea of how it's written here, that it would be referred to the selectmen then for their final review and their finding of punishment, for lack of a better term. But that's something I think we should have a discussion on, because others may feel a different way about that, and they may not like that system. So I think what I'm saying on that is that the entirety of section 13 is probably not up for debate so much. We probably want to wordsmith it, but I will at a minimum identify section G as an important thing to discuss, because it goes to the very question of who's going to ultimately be the decision maker here. And that can go a couple or three different ways. Section 14, whistleblower protection. Again, we might want to wordsmith that, but that seems to be a common section in all the codes I've looked at. Section 15, enforcement mechanism. Maybe we throw that in with what I just tried to say about 13G. We're going to want something like this, I think, on what the various resolutions could be. But I think this goes into the same conversation. Who is it that's ultimately going to come to these conclusions? Is it the ethics commission? Is it the board of selectmen? Who's it going to be? And that's something that I think deserves, conversation amongst all of us. I guess obviously section 16 on the membership terms and all that of the Board of Ethics. Again, that is not us, that's the next group.
Terms and vacancies are within the charter as well, and those could be lifted right into this document if necessary. I'm not so sure it's necessary.
Or we could say, I don't know, I'm not sure what we do. We could say there's gonna be a 6-member Board of Ethics, for instance, and membership terms and vacancies will be governed by charter code, whatever.
Mhm.
Might not be much more than that, because it probably is not much more than that, because that's really all it can be.
I think all 16, 17, 18, and 19 are all charter related. Or you could find process within the charter.
Well, 17 is probably, review and updates is probably, I would suggest it might better be entitled amendment. And yeah, then it would follow the way you amend anything within our codes. But again, I don't think that's really something that's for lack of a better term, wordsmithing again. That I don't think we're gonna have differences of opinion over whether this could be amended in the future. Of course, it could be amended in the future. It's just gonna be a question of how we put the words on
Put the words on the page, yeah.
Right.
And then the form.
Training and education. Yeah. Well, I guess so I'm hesitating here. I'm not, so I didn't think about this yet, but I don't know who's going to do the training and education. It's more of a
Right.
practical question. So for instance, I don't think any of us as members on this board did anything like this, but other boards in town, the planning and zoning, ZBA,
Fair.
Board of Finance, other things, but the selectmen, other groups like that are always invited to go to these, CCM educational seminars, Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. They're wildly useful. Whether you've been on a board already or not, or whether they're set up for new people, they're set up for experienced people, all that stuff. They're not gonna train and educate our town officers and employees on our code. Okay, because maybe they have a general seminar someday on ethics. I'm sure they do. It'd be a great idea if they don't. But if we do training and education, someone within town is gonna have to do that. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how that's gonna work, but maybe we don't have to figure that out. But I'll add that to our list. And yeah, I'm not sure about, I mean, 19 is aspirational, so that's great. On community input, and then that takes us to the forums, which maybe I'll add that to this, because I think we had a couple different ways of thinking about that tonight, just in the four of us.
Mhm.
And there's a thought that this should be added as samples or as real forms. And then there's a thought that, it shouldn't be. So that probably deserves a little more. So in my list, well, I've got 10 sort of, I don't want to say hot button, but I'm going to say hot button for lack of a better term, 10 sort of hot button issues to be sorted out and see what we think about them.
Can I make a suggestion, or just to put it out to the group? So, like thinking about it this way, I think is really helpful. And I wonder if, Rob, you can just we could spend some time tonight before we break. You can sort of just tell us how you want to, what areas you want to focus on. Do you want next week? It might be discussion. It might be wordsmithing. I don't know, whatever you want. And then we can come prepared to, attack that, even if we don't get to the whole list.
Right. So my suggestion is going to be, and I'll see what you guys think about it, okay? But my suggestion in response to that is, and so we missed March, and here we are in April. But I think it even says in the minutes when we left at the end of the February meeting, I said, I think it's in here. I said, well, Gail wrote it in a nicer way than I said it. She wrote, continue to think broadly about what elements should be included in the code so that the committee can come to a consensus before beginning to write the code. I said, let's think big thoughts, but that sounds better the way Gail wrote it. So I think in many ways, we're still sort of at that point.
Mhm.
And that doesn't sound too good because now it's 2 months later. Well, but we missed March. And I think that and I've gone through this. I just sort of was talking. Perhaps I skipped a section that someone else thinks is, a hot button issue, but we can add it later on. I think I got 10 of these. And I think maybe the agendas so far have been fairly general. They've been very general. Maybe the next agenda is going to list these sections off the working copy that we're going to kind of go through and discuss to try and either reach consensus or have our say without reaching consensus, and then sort of move along and get to the point where we're doing our best to agree on language.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach. I wonder if we should also, because as you were talking, you were saying, certain sections I think are good except for wordsmithing. Maybe if the next time we have everybody here, we at least get agreement on which those sections are, and so that we know we don't have to come back to them. And if we don't have agreement on it, then we need to put them on, add them to your list, I guess.
Right, so, well, I think if I understand that, I think I do, it's the inverse. So I got 10 that I feel like we need to at least devote some discussion to, and whatever's on this list, the rest of it's sort of okay. Except
Right.
maybe we want to add a comma here or there or whatever, I don't know. But if I'm mistaken and someone really wants, and for instance, the definition section, I think that, I mean, we want a definition section first of all. And so, I think, and we've talked about this one a little bit, I think it's actually pretty close. But if I'm mistaken and we need to have a robust discussion on the definition section, well, so be it.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, regardless of the order.
Right. Okay, so as I was going through that, Gail, I don't know if you got all that for the minutes. If you did, great, and if you didn't, I'm gonna put it, I made notes myself as I was going down it, and I'll add it to the next agenda. You know, what we're gonna do until we, work our way through this.
Yeah, and can I also make the suggestion that Gail, if everyone here is comfortable with it, that Gail maybe not make any more changes to the document so that we have, like, we're all working off this document and we're moving forward, and when we decide on something for sure, at that point, we can consider changing just that section or whatever.
Very, that's good. Okay, Gail? Very good, okay.
Gail, are you sending the minutes directly to us or to the town? To send it to us?
I generally send them to Rob to double check for me because it's the first time I'm doing it. And then after I make any changes, he suggests I send them to Dawn Mooney.
Okay, because I'm not getting them.
Well, there's, you can send them around to everyone if you'd like, Gail.
Okay.
There are certain requirements, so we didn't vote on anything tonight, so I sometimes forget, I want to say it's 48 hours to get it into the town clerk.
It is.
48 hours if we voted on something. If we haven't voted on something, I think it's 7 days. I'm not sure, I have to double check that. But for instance, we approved our minutes tonight, but they were posted on the town website, a few days after our February 3rd meeting.
Right.
So, that's
But
not.
if people would like me to send them out, I can do that. After I edit them with Rob's suggestions, when I send them to Dawn, I could send them to everyone else in the committee if you'd like me to do that.
That would be helpful for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rob, is it appropriate for Gail to, if she sends out the minutes to us, attach another copy of the document she shared earlier tonight? Or should that not go out with the minutes?
So that's okay. What's gonna happen is, just so you know, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but just so you know, when that happens, that will also be posted on the town.
Oh, on the
clerk's
website.
Right.
Okay, then let's
I'm
not do
not
that. I think that
comfortable
will
at this
confuse people.
stage of doing that at this stage. I think it's opening up a can of worms because so much of it is going to change. I
Yeah,
don't want
I
to
agree.
put that
I
out
agree.
there yet.
I was just trying to, if the minutes are going to have, assuming we sort of decide where we're focusing next time, and that might be in the minutes or I guess could be in the agenda. I was just thinking it would all be in one place, but that's fine. I mean, I'll go back and find it easily enough. I know some people, if it's not right attached. They can't seem to locate it in their inboxes. So, okay.
Okay, all right, so I'm gonna start moving us towards conclusion now, if that's okay. Now, before I do that, the other item we have on the agenda that I will continue to put on the agenda until we finally have concluded our work is a discussion about future meeting schedules and content. So we've talked about content, very good. You know, we set a regular meeting schedule, which is the first Monday of every month. It is possible to hold special meetings. And I don't know if I'm not gonna propose we do that right now, but we can, I mean, we can have a special, I mean, maybe what we wanna do is, maybe we have a special meeting when we're really drafting language or something. But, I'm not gonna suggest that we hold a special meeting between now and, the first Monday in May. But just so you know, going forward, if we can agree on a schedule and we can get a room and all that stuff, we can have a special meeting. Okay. All right, anything else, anybody? All right, well, even though, you know, there were the four of us, I thought it was a very productive meeting and we had some good conversation and we're on track to, make some progress and get to where we're gonna go. Okay, so thank you, everybody. And
Thank you.
At 8:25, I'm gonna declare the meeting adjourned. Okay.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.